Lesson 2.4, Manage Azure AD Identities. When planning your Azure AD identities, the first thing to consider is how your environment will be configured. In hybrid environments, most of the identity management will be done in the on-prem Active Directory. In cloud environments, identity management might be done via the Microsoft 365 Admin Center or the Azure AD Admin Center, or you might use the Azure CLI or PowerShell, or some combination or any or all of these methods. Other questions include, what will your UPNs look like? You'll need a naming convention that includes a default domain, which can be any domain that's been configured and authorized to use with the directory. What will your organization want to require for authentication and authorization? For example, what's your password change policy? Will you require multi-factor authentication? What user roles will you define, and what are the membership rules? And the same question for Azure AD groups. As previously mentioned, Azure AD users can be managed in a number of ways, but for the most common kinds of user management, it's common to use the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. From here, you can manage things like the username and password, the user's personal information, their group membership, and Microsoft 365 product licensing. Although the Microsoft 365 Admin Center is simpler, the Azure AD Admin Center provides a richer set of options. From here, you can perform tasks like updating the user's profile information, assigning directory roles, managing the user's group memberships, licensing and device authorization, as well as managing access to Azure resources, authentication methods, and quite a lot more. The admin centers are useful for one-off interactive identity management, but for bulk operations, PowerShell is a great option. The Azure AD module provides dozens of powerful, intuitive commandlets to permit repeatable, scalable management of Azure AD. For example, the slide shows a few of the popular commandlets for user management. You can use scripts to create, view, and delete user objects, to edit their properties and group memberships, manage passwords, and much, much more. Here's a simple example, a one-liner that lists out all of the users in the directory, showing each user's first name, last name, and user principal name. Of course, managing passwords is one of the most common administrative operations, and Microsoft 365 and Azure AD provide a number of ways to do it. If you reset the user's password interactively via the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, you have the options of either generating a password automatically or using your own, requiring the user to change the password the first time they sign in, and having the initial sign-in information emailed to you. Of course, you can also reset a user's password via PowerShell using the set msol user password commandlet. Here, you can specify the new password and whether or not the user will be required to change it the first time they sign on. If it's aligned with your organization's policies, you can cut down on calls to the help desk by enabling self-service password reset. This is done via the Azure Active Directory portal by navigating to the user's blade, selecting password reset, and switching the self-service password reset enabled setting to all. The effect of enabling self-service password reset is that users are given the option of resetting their own passwords by going to https://passwordreset.microsoftonline.com and completing a basic form. Unsurprisingly, Azure AD logs extensively. As an admin, you can use the sign-in logs to view successful and failed sign-ins for all users, and you can view the audit logs to see what various accounts have been doing in Azure AD. Microsoft 365 defines several kinds of groups. Microsoft 365 groups are designed to support collaboration. Each Microsoft 365 group has its own email address, a shared workspace, and shared locations for files and calendar events, and a planner. Security groups, on the other hand, are much simpler. They're designed solely for the purpose of granting access to resources. Security groups can contain both user accounts and device accounts. Another aspect of group membership in Azure AD is that it can be assigned or dynamic. Assigned simply means static group membership. An admin has to manually place a user into a group. Dynamic membership means that a user's membership in a group is based on a query against the user's attributes. A user whose attributes match the query automatically becomes a member of the group. Both kinds of membership can be configured and managed by the Microsoft 365 Admin Portal, the Azure AD Admin Portal, or via PowerShell. Just like with user management, the Azure AD PowerShell module provides commandlets for creating, viewing, and deleting groups and managing their membership. The slide shows just a few of the common commandlets that allow for repeatable, script-based management of groups and group membership. Microsoft 365 product licenses can be viewed and assigned via the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. From the Active Users page, you can select a user and then view that user's Licenses and Apps page to see which products that user is licensed for. Licensing information can also be managed with PowerShell. For example, the get MSOL user commandlet retrieves product licensing as part of the user data it returns. The image on the screen shows an example where the results of the get MSOL user commandlet are filtered for only licensed users, and then for each user, their sign-in name is written to the console, their licenses are enumerated, and each license SKU is written to the console. In assigning permissions, Microsoft